Jared Lawrence, we are live, PNL Live. Let's go, dude. Let's get right into it, man, because you'd think that there wasn't a whole lot that happened on a week that, is a holiday week, but there's a ton to talk about, man. You wanted to get into a lot of the All-Star match. I have some thoughts on the matter, that's for sure. And then there was also Pitt beat Lehigh. So take it over, brother.
All right, so let's start off. We got a couple of duels we talked about last week that had the potential to be big. Iowa, Oregon State. Iowa ended up winning 25-11. The only upset, Brandon Kaler won 25, upset Drake Ayala, who was number 10. Other than that, Iowa basically ran the course of what they should be doing, right? I mean, they just number 9, Brody Teske got a major. Real Woods won. Vojinovic won. Franek won. Caliendo won. There was another upset. Grabe Arnold beat number 9, Travis Whitlake. So that was a huge win so I think Arnold's a freshman. He's just trying to make his name, and he seems to be fitting right in with that pace. So other than that,
we'll get back to that in a little bit. I have some thought. I'm really interested to see him against that MJ guy time.
That'll be a great match. Absolutely.
So excited for that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Pittsburgh wins 7 matches against Lehigh. Now, I'm not sure that Lehigh had all of their starters in, but still, I mean, Navy just beat Pittsburgh last week. They come back. They beat Lehigh, who is not an easy team to beat. No. So that was, that's huge for Pitt, right?
So here's the thing, right? Like, we have to now take Pitt very seriously, right? I know they just dropped one to Navy, but they're putting guys on the podium consistently. They have guys ranked, and then they're knocking off in-state rivals like Lehigh. Like, we have to pay attention to Pitt, and they're adding to what has pretty quickly become the second best wrestling conference in the country, right? I mean, the ACC is, I don't think it's really arguable anymore. They're the second best wrestling conference in the country.
There's a lot of good wrestlers, and they have some ranked guys. I mean, Cole Matthews is ranked 10. Heller's ranked 10. I mean, they have the other Heller's ranked 13. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of guys in the top 15. That 10 through 15 is like it could go any which way. You make a few changes here and there, all of a sudden you're in for an All-American spot, and you get 4 or 5 All-Americans, man, you're running top 5.
So maybe you would have more insight into this than I would. I always thought, obviously, with as strong as Western PA is in high school, that they were always kind of a sleeping giant. And don't get me wrong, Keith Gavin is doing an incredible job there, but there has to be some type of limitations that I'm not thinking about. Like, is it terribly expensive to go to Pitt? Are they not fully funded? Do they not have the support of the administration? There has to be something that's keeping them from being an absolute powerhouse, because it's not hard to get kids from Western PA to stay in Western PA.
I mean, there's just so much talent there to choose from. I mean, they got guys that are not even placing at the state that you normally would overlook that are great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the school's harder to get into than we think.
Could be. Yeah, that could be it.
Another match we talked about was Missouri, Arizona State. Had potential to be a very good duel, but Arizona State had a few guys out with injuries. They have their 25-pounder out, 57-pounders out. So we knew it was going to be a little tricky, but there were some swing matches to keep that match close. But Missouri 39, Arizona State 6. They ended up blowing them out. They won every swing match that we thought could be a swing match, and it was not even swings. There was a lot of points put up on the board there.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State got hit with the injury bug pretty good. And truth be told, man, the kid Vasquez has not really put together a solid season yet because of injury. And so if you're Zeke, what do you start looking at? Do you start looking at like, hey, are we overtraining these kids? Because like there are kids that can do volume, right? Zahid Valencia, that kid can do volume. Maybe he's got to kind of look, and again, this is just, Monday morning quarterback. maybe you got to look at some of your training regimen, right? Because these guys you got to keep these kids healthy.
Yeah, or maybe it was they gave them a break and then they came back, just too much. You come back and you're like, well, we got to get back into wrestling shape, and we wrestle live more than we do. And when people get tired, they tend to get a little sloppy and they let people in more, and you end up in more scrambles. It could be one of those types of things. Who knows? You're right. It could be training, it could be freak injuries.
Yeah.
It could be us, but you get a couple guys hurt that are high ranked guys. That's big points.
Oh yeah, that cripples you, especially if
even if it's just two. Like you have 40 guys and you just happen to have two guys hurt. Every team has two guys hurt. Sure. That team just happens to have two big guys hurt.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know, man. I'm curious to see how Teamer puts it together towards the end of the year, because he is as fun to watch as darn near anyone in the country. I mean, wasn't Peyton Robb one of your guys?
Yeah, that was an amazing match. That is like everything right there. Like that should be our PNL. Like that should be on our homepage, because they both laid it on, but they both were like putting their hand out like hell of a job, So that's a good testament of what wrestling should be like.
Absolutely. And again, you get two kids like that are such gamers, man. Just such gamers. It's fun to watch. The NCAA, I guess what I'm trying to say is the NCAA is better with Ja'Cory Teamer in it. And I hope he gets better.
Yeah, I don't know what he's hurt with, but he got hurt a couple weeks ago over in New York, maybe, or something like that. It was at an Open. He got hurt in Open.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Anyway,
what else we got?
Let's move on to the All-Star. We had the potential to really had some PNL people in the All-Star. I mean, I don't know, Keegan O'Toole obviously probably should have been in there. They must have had something going on where he could say no, but he should have been a guy. Obviously we had, we were going to have Clay Carlson, South Dakota State, who happens to be a Pinnacle guy. We had another at 57. We had M2 guy get hurt. Haynes got hurt, so they had to sub out. They both got hurt, actually, so they had to sub that out. Lucky for Pinnacle, they went D2, D3 national champs at 157. So Nick Novak got in there, who's a longtime Pinnacle guy. We also had Greg Kirklevitt in the All-Star Classic, which was really good for Pinnacle. It's awesome stuff, but two of them didn't get in there because they got hurt. But Parker Keckheisen's a AWA guy, so it's good for the league to see that they're putting up some top guys, which is really fun. So let's get into it. So 125, Ramos versus Noto. Obviously, Noto is notorious for being super good on top. The match ended up Ramos winning 10-2, but if you watch the match, it was a one takedown match at the very end.
It was garbage time for that one.
Yeah,
and he avoided Noto's top.
Yeah, you had to go for it, but that's a 7-point move now.
Yeah.
Right. You go for something and it's a 3-point takedown, 4-point near fall. So that match, which looks like, we got majored, but it was a one takedown match, and it was a scramble, takedown, I think, so it was just like,
man. So in your opinion, this is the first time I can think of oh crap, the 3-point takedown just changed a match pretty drastically, right? Yeah. So you see him get a 3-point takedown, get an escape, and now that match is tied generally going into the third period, changes the dynamic of it in a big bad way. Do you think it's good or do you think it's bad?
I think time will tell. I mean, it turns some matches. You can blow it out of the water. Some it can get close. Some you're going to see, which we'll talk about later, where the same thing happened, where a guy gets a lead and, he's got a 3-point lead basically if he gets a takedown at the end of the first, and then they can stall basically. And here's the problem that's happening right now is that because the out of bounds rule is almost like a stalling call, they're not calling stalling within the circle. Yeah. I'm seeing guys back up and they're fleeing and then they engage a little bit and then they back up. And then all of a sudden, if they don't go out of bounds, they're not calling anything.
Yeah, so, it's it's tricky. I almost don't. I don't know. I think we just really need to go to a step out, like a hard step out, and make that more black and white, because there's too much ambiguity in there for me. That's number one. But to your point, I feel what you're saying as far as it can create negative wrestling, but I do like that it's keeping things. It's placing a little bit more emphasis on top or in the neutral position. Okay,
Yeah.
I like that because look, the kid Ramos got a takedown. Okay, he was awarded 3 points, gives up an escape, gives up another one. Okay, and now that match going into the third period, he has to choose. More than likely, he has to choose bottom with 2 point takedowns. But instead, he gets to choose neutral position, and we see more neutral wrestling. I don't know. I think I kind of like the idea of it.
It can be, like I said, you take a guy like Starachi, who is super aggressive. I mean, he might just even though he did turn Makai Lewis, right? But he is such a force. I mean, he's just on legs all match. He's just going to get takedowns.
Yeah.
So it'll work its way. I mean, it's new for everybody, so we just don't know how to do it. So right now, people are just dealing with it how they can. Like, hey, I go out and I get a takedown in the first, and then I can sit back and I can just play the reattack card. That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about. But
it's fair. It's fair. No, it's fair. Okay, moving on.
McGonigal and Latona at 33, great match. McGonigal comes out with a takedown. He's in on some legs. They scramble around. He reattacks. He scores. Latona ends up scoring at the end of the third to put it into overtime. It was good. And one thing I really liked about Latona's really good at his lead leg knee pull, right? So he takes the lead leg knee pull. He gets scored on with it. And then he tries it for like another period and a half. Lead leg knee pull doesn't get close. Then he makes the switch. Then all of a sudden he goes, hey, this guy's onto my knee pull line. I'm going to start ripping the other side. He gets in on a single the other side, ends up sitting him to his butt, scores, puts it into overtime. And then McGonigal, is really good on top. Lehigh, in my opinion, as a whole, are really good defense. They're really
they always placed a ton of emphasis on the top position, and they're great at it.
So he played a little bit of that card, I think, of like, hey, it's going to work out for me if I can get into overtime a little bit. He actually ended up getting a reversal in the double overtime or whatever. Nice little move of like a standing Granby leg hook that you're
kind
seeing.
Kind of hip switch. Yeah.
It was really nice. I'm actually going to start playing with that after really watching it there. I'm like, okay, that's going to go into the Pinnacle playbook here pretty soon. So
yeah, no, that was great.
Great match, though. That was 7-5 on McGonigal. Lachlan McNeil and Coderhant at 141. Coderhant was a sub-in for somebody got hurt there, but so he was kind of a last-minute sub-in. But
can we just listen? I hate to be this guy because it sounds like I'm just gonna do like a hot take just to do it. And I texted you about it that night. If we can't get 1 and 2, can we just knock it off? Like, we don't have to have matches at every weight class. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing written that says, this is meant to be number 1 versus number 2. And if we can't see Keegan O'Toole versus David Carr, well, what are we doing?
And it only happened, it did happen, I guess, from 174 up.
Yeah,
was number 1 versus number 2, but
they were great matches. Yeah. And like, I'm not trying to. Maybe you go 2 versus 3, but then as we start like kind of going down the list, and again, I don't want to take anything away from these guys at 41 or whatever, but it's like, what are we doing? We know Real Woods is like 1, 2 right there. So why are we not like? And maybe we just put more pressure on the coaches in some way. Or maybe we just got to pay these kids, right? But either way, I think we gotta get
maybe Flo should pay them.
Yeah, I mean
they're getting good. I mean, I can't. And this had to have gotten great views, right? It's the All-Star.
Yeah, so they don't make money on views though. They do, but yeah, they probably got a bunch of subs from that. Yeah, I would suggest that they probably did very, very well on that. But
or if they need to try to get some ones and twos, who knows? But it still was great. I mean, you're going to have some people ones and twos that are going to get hurt and not make it, but
for sure,
it was still great. But that was a great match. It was a one takedown match. That was the one that I would say where McNeil did a great job where he got a takedown at the end of the first. You know, then I think it was like 3-1. So it was like 4-2 in the third. And he just never really engaged. You know, he never took another shot. Now, he doesn't need to either.
right.
But that's where I worry about it because he knows he can give up a stall call here.
Or 3.
Yeah, I mean, really.
I mean, let's call it what it is.
And if you stay in the middle, they're not calling you for stalling. That's my biggest thing is that the refs are calling that out of bounds rule. Like if you're not circling and you go out of bounds, boom, there's a stall call. So they're not calling. You can stall in the circle a little bit more. That's all I'm saying.
Jared,
and they're not.
If you're wrestling for Penn State at 197 pounds, you can stall on the edge too. Let's call it what it is, dude.
He did, yeah.
Or 184, excuse me. He was 97.
He did ended up getting called, I think, at the very end. I think that it ended up tying it up. But
dude, he took 3 steps towards the line every time Parker got to a leg. Yeah. He took 3 steps towards the line just to wrestle on the out of bounds every time Parker got to the leg. I mean, if that's anywhere but Happy Valley, he gets banged for stalling, and it's at least 2 more times.
Yeah, it could be.
Right? Am I crazy? Come on.
No, I was right. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, man, they should have hit him for stalling. They did end up hitting. It was just later, I think, and it just changes things. You know, we could have had a 5-5 match a little bit earlier, right, in the third period, and really force some good scrambling. But it is, like I said, that's the name of the game now because you're calling out of bounds, edge stalling so much more. You're letting things play up into it a little bit more. But
yeah, that's not great, Jared. It's not great, man.
149.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
great.
149 was great. 2 versus 3. You got Parko versus Van Ness, and
that was fun.
Van Ness is just an athlete. He goes hard. He doesn't get tired. That was a really a couple times they had shots where it was like shot, reattack, and then another reattack, and then out of bounds. Like it was that was a great match of true athleticism on both sides.
Both sides. That kid Parko's a freak athlete too, by the way.
Yes. Oh, they both are. They're both super fast. So Van Ness ended up winning 5-1, basically a takedown. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yep. Then 57, we got hurt. So they had a last minute put in where they had Nick Novak, who was a national champ D2 for St. Cloud State versus Nolan Hurdle of Wisconsin Lacrosse, who's a D3 national champ. And to be honest, not a lot of action in that match. It ended up going into sudden victory. I thought it was sudden victory. But they both gave each other both way too much credit, and they didn't really get into it. I did talk to Novak's dad because he's a Pinnacle guy and he was not feeling well, but it's not an excuse. I mean, if you got to be able to compete whenever. That's just the way it is. But
for sure,
it wasn't as exciting. We get to 165 though. That actually was one of my favorite matches to watch. That Olenek, I think that's how you say it.
Olenek. Yes, that's it. Yeah.
I mean, he is talented.
He's super talented, and now look, I'm not trying to hate on Northern Illinois, but you put him in a room where he can compete every day. Man, oh man, he's got some junk. I really like watching him wrestle.
He was impressive. I mean, and Hamidi was in on his legs like crazy. And Hamidi normally doesn't even attack that much.
That's right.
He kind of dives in. He likes defensive stuff, but he was all over his legs. Alejnik got out of so many different scrambles, but here's what I liked. It didn't phase him. No. He would get right up and not run to the line, but you know how you're like playing defense, you get up and you're playing this lackadaisical card a little bit.
Sure.
He got right up and got right on the line and was like, you did not scare me one bit.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I didn't know that he'd be able to go athlete for athlete with DJ Hamidi's. I mean, he's kind of a freak too.
And he's goofy. It's hard to wrestle those guys, man. Yeah. It is really hard to wrestle. And I mean, that was a really fun match. And it ended up being 8-2. Alejnik won. Mm-hmm. But again, it was a one takedown match, and then he ended up
Yeah.
getting a takedown at the very end because Hamidi, just diving in, having to go for something. So he got a takedown with like 2 seconds left. Otherwise, that's a one takedown match. It was really exciting. Moving on to 74, Starachi, Makai Lewis, again, an amazing match.
Yeah, but
Makai Lewis got out of
Starachi,
so many.
yeah.
He got out of like 4 deep takedowns in the first. I think it was 0-0 at the first.
But there's only so long you can do that. You can't do that.
Yep.
Like, you can't do that for 7 minutes, especially against a guy as high level as Starachi. It looks like he's just starting to widen the gap. And
well, he's just on the hunt right now. He never took a step back that whole match. Yeah. Whistle blew. Starachi was moving forward. He was in on you. Makai's maybe not full strength yet. He's still got a big knee brace on. He still looks like hasn't been up to par. I think that match is different later on in the year, to be honest, just because I think Makai will keep getting better and better shape and be able to withstand it. Because you could see it. He looked a little tired by the end of it, and that's where Starachi started getting in on it. But a great match for the fans because it was just action-packed. There was just there like maybe 10 seconds that you didn't have somebody taking a shot in on a leg and scrambling and rolling around. That was a great match. But Strachey ended up winning with it by a major, 11-0. Good match. Parker Keckheisen, Bernie Truax, great match. Truax got a takedown, tried to do what I feel like we're going to see a little bit. Got a first period takedown and then tried to kind of just sit back. And he's that guy that can kind of be real sneaky, right? Where he can kind of float back and get you catching in. And then he has that real quick sweep single to league leg. So he kind of sets it up almost like John Smith's low single, where he just backs, wait for you to step, and then he rolls into it. He just does it from a tied position, and he floats, and then he can rip a very fast
single. But he doesn't need to go single leg to score either, right? Like he didn't he score off like a slide by or something like that?
It was that same shot actually.
It was a single leg.
It was a back, and it's a very fast sweep single, and then Keckheisen tried to like scramble around a little bit, and then he ended up getting into it. And then the match was a little bit not boring, but Truax played the card a little bit, and that's the match we were talking that he could have got called for stalling, which I think so, because Keckheisen got in on his leg like 3 different times.
Dude, he was in on his legs 5 times without scoring.
Yeah, and Truax just happened to get out of bounds, but I think I heard somebody else talking about it too. Like, it's stalling because you can't get to the edge 5 times. If you're on the edge, that means you backed up to the edge and then got shot on. It's not like the scramble started in the center of the match and found its way all the way over on the edge.
No, he as soon as he got on his leg, he was taking 2 to 3 steps towards that out of bounds. And I get it, man. You don't want to get scored on, but golly, you got to engage. You got to engage in there. So,
but he ended up getting called for stalling, but he ended up getting a takedown. Keckheisen, right as we got called for stalling, that made it 5-5. And then he ended up getting a takedown right as the time ran out, just by being relentless and staying on it. But good match.
97, dude. I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at Kale wanting to monopolize this entire Olympic team because Aaron Brooks looked so freaking good at 97.
Going up a weight too. I mean,
dude, going up a weight filled that singlet out like holy smokes. He looked monstrous at 97.
Yeah, he looked real good. I mean, he did what he does. He gets on that collar tie, and some of those guys, I mean, he's like Starachi, right? They're like the same person, just different weights, where they're just on the head, they're pulling on you. They're looking for their leg attacks, they're getting to legs, they're scoring. If you try to score on them, good luck.
Here's the thing though. He was up a weight and now kept every bit of that speed. He is making guys look like they're standing still. He is a serious. If you don't think he's a threat to make this team in 24, you're crazy. You're crazy because he's as slick, as powerful as you can call it. We're not just giving the spot to Snyder because Jaden Cox is there too. He's as slick as both of them.
Yeah, it'll be as he keeps developing too. Yeah. He will be a wrecking ball. Which brings me to another wrecking ball, Greg Kirklevitt.
That
I
kid's
mean,
tough. He's tough. He's so
I mean,
good.
he looked good because this
He looked
match
good.
was like a 1 point. He had to come back at the NCAA's in the semis um, to beat Hendrickson. So for him to just come through and just get a tech
Dude, he
ball and he
crushed
missed
it.
the leg turk at the end. I'm going to call him out on that. My boy Greg. Greg had a leg turk and he just was like, yeah, I'm going to let go of it. I'm going to cut him and take him down. You could have got the tech a few minutes earlier had you would have just elevated the leg and crawled forward. So,
Do you think that Colton Schultz has a shot against a guy like Kirkley?
I mean, he does. I mean, that he's a good wrestler, right? So
He's a good wrestler, but he's also a big style matchup.
Yeah, they're complete opposites. So it's just depending on who decides to wrestle that match. If you keep space, Greg will pick you apart because he has that ability. If you close the gap on him and try to smother him and not let him create space, it might be a different situation. But Greg's getting healthier. He talks that he's getting stronger. He's still getting better. He loves the sport. So
that's great, man. That's great. He
looks good.
But here's the thing. Was he always like that? Was he always the guy that kind of really enjoyed the sport? Because it looked to me like when he was losing to Gable, man, I was kind of hoping we wouldn't lose him. I hope we don't lose him from the sport.
Yeah, no, he's good. I think with Gable, it was like a little big brother thing, like because they grew up, they're both in Minnesota, they wrestle each other, and I think he just was always, kind of getting beat by him a little bit.
Sure.
So we thought maybe it could be a little different, which who knows? Like
now, look, I don't care.
Gable, like we just don't know.
I have no idea. I mean, there's only so long you can stay out of a wrestling room and compete at that level. There's just, I mean, it's a sliding scale for everyone, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is the WWE hasn't given their answer yet. That's the problem. They're trying to push it and trying to get the hype going and trying to get the media up so that they can show that it would be worth it for them. But they have not given an official answer yet. So like we just won't know.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, that was the All-Star. I thought it was pretty good. I think we could do with more. Like, it doesn't have to be every weight class. Like, I don't know where that's written, dude. But we don't have to get every weight class represented. If we don't get the matchups that we like, don't have that weight class. There's nothing saying in stone that you got to have it.
Well, you have a great idea where, like, people don't always have 2 hours. Right?
I don't want to
sit and watch wrestling. If there's only 6 duels, but they're awesome matches, that's not a bad play.
I think that's the way to go, man.
That's
we're going to start doing it.
Brainiac move right there.
Well, I don't know if I'm alone in my thought process there, but you can be sure that I'm going to be pushing for the PNL to be to have showcases that are 6 matches tops. Right? I want to consider people's time when we put together cards, for sure. We do have an awesome duel lined up for Sunday on ESPN. It's going to be Iowa versus Iowa State. Excuse me. I've been talking for 3 hours straight. I apologize. So, look, you wanted me to run through this, and I will, and I love it. But I do want to get your thoughts on a couple of these matchups. Let's go through the lineup real quick. 25 is Drake Ayala versus Kaisen Terakina. Now, Terakina's from Hawaii, I believe.
Yep. But he is skilled. He's quick.
He's quick. He's been around the block. He can scramble. I think he causes some problems for a guy like Drake Ayala. 33, Brody Teskey, Evan Frost. I mean, I have a hard time thinking that Teskey won't win this.
I know. I would say that too. And Teskey is looking good right now.
He's tough, dude. He's
going very hard. It's funny to me because I thought he was going to be an Iowa guy, right? And then it's just funny how the world can work, right? Because normally Iowa, if you diss them like that, if you're not a high school guy going to them, like they want no part of you.
Yeah.
And he went from there to Northern Iowa. Now he's back to Iowa, where I think he should have been. And there you
go. Yeah. Okay, 41. Real Woods, Anthony Echemendia. That's interesting to me. Echemendia has, they call it in boxing, they call it knockout power, right? Echemendia can put you on your back at any point. And do I think he's going to do it? No, probably not. But don't let Anthony Echemendia get in shape. Don't let him have a gas tank for 7 minutes, because then he becomes a real problem. He becomes an absolute terror because he's as talented and as athletic as anybody on a matted surface.
But I don't think he will. I mean, I really do think that Woods will get on it and stay on it. So
no, I agree. I actually have Real as a major on that one. This is the one that I want your thoughts on. Swiderski against Voinovich. Right now on paper, it's supposed to be Voinovich. I love this kid, Swiderski. I love the way this kid wrestles. I think he's great for the sport. He is a forward. He's moving forward at all times. He hand fights hard, and he hand fights. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He hand fights to get the legs. But then you put a kid like Voinovich against him, who I'm not saying he's backing up, right? But he's fundamentally and positionally as sound as you can get. Where do you see this one kind of going?
Well, I think it can go. Obviously, this is a swing match. This is a big match, right?
This is a big one.
Now, Iowa State, I feel like they need this one, and it's in their home crowd. So I think that's going to play into more of a role than we would think. Voinovich is coming off a loss against another. I mean, like, he might not even been the varsity guy. Like, Ferrari just beat him.
Yeah.
Right? So he could have a little bit of doubt, a little bit. Swiderski could have a little bit more. Did these guys ever wrestle on a Who's Number One?
I don't think so.
They were both on the card, I believe.
Yeah, I think
they might have been at different weights, though.
I think they were. Swiderski was a little bit bigger.
So huge match. I might go the other way. I might, with Iowa State, just because he has those things rolling for him. Home crowd advantage, big match, swing match. They need it. Yeah. So I might go that route.
Yeah, I actually have Swiderski by minor decision. All right, 57, Chittum, and it looks like Franek is out. Is that correct?
No, I don't think so.
No, he's in there?
I think he's in. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I was thinking. That was a text error between us.
Okay. That is very interesting to me as well.
Yeah. It could be where Chittum is extremely talented, man. I mean, he's got great stuff. If he can get to his positions, and get where he wants to be, he can be a serious threat. He can ride. Franek, though, they're very similar. They're very positional wrestlers.
Yep. Yes.
Franek is nothing fancy, but he stays in position and he is hard to score on. I'm assuming his hand fighting is great. It has been before that. Now he's at Iowa. He can fit right in there. So that's another great match, even though on paper it's supposed to be Iowa all the way.
Of course, but I do not see. Look, I want the Ames crowd. I want the Hilton Arena crowd to be involved in this. Everybody talks about Carver Hawkeye, and it's a great environment to wrestle in. But we need more of those. So if you're anywhere near Ames, if you like the Cyclones even a little bit, get your ass over to Hilton Coliseum, because I want there to be another place to wrestle like
it. Needs to be extremely packed. Yeah,
I agree. Okay, 65, Caliendo versus David Carr. I don't think David can. There's not many ways David can lose this one.
No, and he knows that because he's going to need it, right? You cannot you especially if you can start. If there's depending on the match before that goes, like that, that momentum swing, the momentum swing could be a massive deal, right?
Yeah.
If Chittum can find a way to upset number 2 Franek, and then Carr moves, And then that brings us to 74, which is another huge matchup.
This is the one that I have circled. This is the one that I'm most intrigued about. I don't know why I'm going to assume this. I just like to assume because I want to see the match. Gabe Arnold against MJ Gaitan, and they couldn't be more opposite when it comes to wrestling, right? I mean, Gabe Arnold is nothing super duper flashy. Hand fight, high crotch, hand fight, single leg. MJ Gaitan is really tricky, really, really wily. You know, he kind of reminds me of the Hamidis of the world, where he can turn his own leg being up in the air into takedowns for him and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to see not just this matchup, but I really want to see how much progress a guy like MJ Gaitan can make in a room like Iowa State's room, because he came from Temecula Valley, which is a good wrestling team for Southern California. It's good.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a California guy.
Yeah, Temecula Valley, so he's about an hour from here. But he didn't have a room like that. He didn't have David Carr. He didn't have Brent Metcalf. He didn't have, that type of a room to really push him. Man, I kind of I really want this kid to pan out in a big way. And I think this is his first major test in front of a big crowd. Super
now,
safe.
Arnold does have a blast double.
Oh, yeah.
And if I was a coach, I would be like, hey, we need to look at that blast double more and not try to force these scramble positions. You get to your high crotch, you get to your singles. Guess what? That's where these guys can scramble from. You go spear double, that's hard to stop. I mean, Jordan Burroughs, nobody ever got to those types of scramble positions on him because you're always on your back.
Right. Yeah, so ask Brandon Slay if it doesn't.
It'll be how that is. I'm curious to know too where Arnold's. I haven't watched his matches. I've seen the results. I'm curious to know where his shape is, because we used to wrestle him. Ryder Rogotsky would wrestle him, and actually Arnold was ranked ahead of him, but I don't think he ever beat Ryder. And it was always Arnold got out to a lead, and then Ryder would kind of find his way back into the match. But Arnold has been at Iowa, Seabolt trained and Iowa trained, so I'm imagining his shape is probably better. But I haven't seen that totally. So that as you start scrambling and getting into some positions, it also can get you pretty exhausted. I've seen a lot of defensive wrestlers that make a living there that can.
They just let you tucker yourself out. Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay, 84, 97, and heavyweight are less sexy matchups for sure. Younger Bastida, he's part of the Cuban Connection over there in Ames. He's talented. He had some gas tank issues in the past. So you just got to wonder if it does come down to heavyweight, which it very well could, okay, if this kid Bastida has enough in the tank to pull out an ugly win, because he's as talented as it comes, right? But can you pull out the 1 point ugly win where he's not the best folk style wrestler in the world, and maybe he's got to get out time.
He might need to get out and get some takedowns.
If
that match stays close, because you got to figure Hill is that who it's going to be? Bradley Hill.
Yeah, it looks like Bradley Hill. Yeah.
I mean, you got to figure that he's going to go out and collar tie. He's going to get inside. He's going to try to do some stuff to just wear on you a little bit. And if that match is within a takedown in the third period, I might give it to Iowa. But if it's more than that, now it's different. But it was, another toss-up is 97, right? Glazer, what is it, Broderson?
Julian Broderson.
That is another big matchup, right? Because it's like 22 versus 24. I mean, depending on how this thing shakes out, like at 84, Feldkamp should win, right? He's like Swafford is nothing special, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but when you're talking number 30 versus number 6, that would be a massive upset, I feel like. Yeah. And so,
So the 197 pound bout, and 57, 49. These are major swing bouts. And so here's what it is for me, right? The Hawkeyes have won 18 straight. Okay. They've won this matchup 18 straight, going back to 2004. I think this might be the Cyclones' year. I really do. I think that Dresser has them going in a direction, and you take that plus the things that guys like Brent Metcalf can add to any team. I think they're going in the right direction, and I think it's really exciting for college wrestling, more specifically, Midwest wrestling. But I got it 18-13 for the Cyclones. I got them winning by 5.
Yeah, but that's a swing match, right? I mean, that's one of those. That's one of those swing matches. I mean,
yeah, no, it's a couple. It's like Voinovich could very easily beat Swiderski. I shouldn't say very easily, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not crazy. It's not a crazy thought, you know. So yeah, it's interesting to me, man. It's really, really interesting. I'm going to be tuned in. I'm going to be fired up to be watching it, because it's like we are at a point right now where we're getting attention from major networks. We're putting great products on the mat. The level of the actual athlete is as high as it's ever been, in my opinion. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan, man.
Yeah, I think it's really good for our sport to get on TV like that and such a big duel. Everybody, all of our tons of followers that are jumping in on the PNL Live, get to it.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of ratings, to get ESPN some more people. Like, just start hitting refresh about 1 million times. Does it work that way?
No, not at all. But dang, Jared, don't you know? No, it does not work like that. But I do share your sentiment. We need to support the sport, and if you have football on Sunday, I'm gonna come to your house and beat you up. Okay. Anything else before we get going here?
No, I think that's a good recap.
All right. Then let's move along. We will catch you guys next week. We'll probably be back at around the same time, 8:30 Pacific, and that means whatever that is, 11:30 on the East Coast. But my name is Mike. That's Jared. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
See ya.